Welcome to the Pirate Broadcast, where we interview interesting people doing interesting things, where you can expand your connections, your community. Kindness is cool and smiles are free. And let's get this party started. And it's a beautiful day for another Pirate Broadcast, and we got another new pirate in the room. Justin, welcome to the party. How are you doing, my friend?
Russ, thank you so much for having me, man. I love the kindness is cool and smiles are free. That's amazing. So it actually made me smile right before we went live. So that's why people saw the brilliant smile that I just had on. But thank you so much for having me.
You know, it's an amazing opportunity to actually share a little bit of kindness. And every day I get up and do this show. And hopefully your experience getting on the show was comfortable. You made it okay. You showed up. Everything works. And the process is okay.
I love it. I got all the notifications and letting me know you guys are excited to have me. It made me feel wanted and welcome. So this was a great opportunity for me. So thank you.
Oh, fantastic. You know, you and I both have been in and around the podcasting world for a few days. And so let's go back. When was the first opportunity that you thought about and you kind of heard about podcasting, or you became aware of it? And give us the backstory, because I just want to make sure people understand and appreciate what you're bringing or what you have done to bring podcasting into the forefront.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And if I were to break down the whole story, I actually became friends with a guy that some people are familiar with named Lewis Howes about 10 years ago, about 11 years ago, actually. And so we connected back when he was like the LinkedIn guy. And he ended up launching his podcast, and I was like, that seems pretty cool. That seems like a great opportunity to connect and learn from people. And so as I went along my journey, it was kind of in the back of my mind, right? Like I understood what podcasting was. I saw it as a tool. I was like, that's pretty neat. Obviously didn't understand. I didn't understand how it worked or what to do or anything like that. And then actually a little over 5 years ago, about 5.5 years ago, I decided I was going to dive into podcasting and really kind of be like, okay, let me connect with entrepreneurs, interview them so I can pick their brain and learn how to be a better entrepreneur. Because at this point, just like that typical journey, right? I had 3 failed businesses under my belt, and I was like, hey, let me use this tool to connect and learn and grow. And that was the original idea behind the podcast. And 6 months after I came up with the idea, it was actually the worst day of my life. My mom lost a 20-year battle to opioids. And it was in that moment that I decided that life was so much more than entrepreneurship and money and all these other things. And so my podcast, The Growth Now Movement, organically became about overcoming adversity, creating the life that you want, finding happiness even in those rock bottom moments. And so it was actually I just crossed the 5-year mark. So a little over 5 years ago, I launched the show. And organically, it started to grow over time. And I was lucky enough to be honored by Inc. magazine as a top 8 podcast every entrepreneur should follow. And all these crazy things kind of followed that. And it's become my full-time thing. Like, I'm a podcaster. Like, people ask me, what do I do? I say I'm a podcaster. And so what started out as let me pick some brains became a massive hobby of mine. And I fell in love with the process of being able to connect and grow and make an impact in the world.
You know, it's interesting that you would say it that way, because it's 5 years for your overnight success, right?
Yeah, right. It took a long time.
And the reality is that, and I talk to podcasters all the time and people that are live streaming or content creation, people, folks in the content creation space. And it really is a long game. There's no shortcut to doing the work. You still have to show up. You still have to actually produce something. You have to work every single day to improve this process. And it's really amazing to think, pod fade is a real thing, as I'm sure you've had many people saying, well, I've got 7 episodes out there and nobody's listening yet.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like anything, the first time you pick up an instrument, you have to think about, okay, I got to practice at it. So, and what happens a lot of times, especially in the podcasting environment, the beautiful thing about it is it introduces you to other opportunities and other conversations. And these conversations develop into other ideas that you expand on. And I know that it brought you to a place where you were doing events and activities like that. So kind of evolve us into the idea that of some of the events that you've had and some of the events you are thinking about producing and being involved in.
Yeah. So first, I want to comment on the pod fade thing, right?
Yeah.
I actually, it's funny. I just created an online course, and part of the course was I brought Libsyn in to talk about podcasting, and they were discussing numbers, right? And so 5 years ago, when I started podcasting, and you can relate to this, I'm sure. 5 years ago, I would tell people I had a podcast, and they would go, "What's a podcast?"
Yeah.
And now I say I have a podcast, and they go, "Oh, you too," right? And they roll their eyes, right? Because everybody has one. But here's the crazy thing that I didn't realize the numbers. I knew pod fade was real, but I didn't know the actual numbers.
How real?
There's something. Oh, it's unreal. It's 2.3 million podcasts are out there, but active podcasts, meaning they have more than 10 episodes and they've done something in the last like 14 days, right? They've released an episode in the last 14 days. It's only like 430,000. So they said if you fill Madison Square Garden, 5 people will be podcasters in all of Madison Square Garden.
Active
podcasters. And I was like, that's insane. So there's still an opportunity, but that's what I love about the medium is that it creates an opportunity for you, but it's all organic. Like you have to be good, right? Like you have to be good at it in order to garner it. And that takes time. Like you said, it takes the reps. It takes all the things that you got to put in to be good at it. So to answer the second part of that question, yeah, organically what happened was I started to build a community around my podcast. And for me, it became about that. How do we create the life that we truly desire? And how are we happy through the process? And I realized that live events are something that you can truly create for individuals to get together, to get connected, to create opportunity, create excitement, to do all these things. And so I was like, it was the end of 2018. And I was like, hey, let's dive in. Let me see if I can do a live event and see how people respond, right? And so I ended up putting together a live event called Growth Now Movement Live, which was in May of 2019. I had incredible speakers like Fabio Viviani from America's Top Chef and Albie Manzo from Real Housewives of New Jersey. And you talk about opportunity and connection from podcasting. I've become friends with these incredible people because of my podcast. Yeah. Right? And then they did me the honor of speaking at my event and had about 160 people from all over the country and Canada come and attend. And then my goal was, hey, let's double this in size every year. Let's create a movement. Let's really create the Growth Now movement. And then, as you know, 2020 hit and COVID hit and everything kind of stopped. And so it made me shift and pivot a little bit. I've done 2 virtual events since then. I did one back in September and I just did one back in February. And it was neat. You know, it was a weird virtual way to create community, right? It was a little bit different, but it's kind of where we're at. But something that it really pivoted me into that I'm excited about. And you talk about things are always going to change around you and things are going to hold you back at times like COVID, right? I have no control over COVID, but how can I now shift as the world starts to open up a little bit? And me and 2 other individuals, actually my girlfriend, who's a nutritionist and a health coach, and my good friend, who's actually a psychic medium who helps businesses grow. We came together and we created a weekend retreat, right? And so we had people from all over the country come in, but there was only about 11 people there, and to be safe and follow the guidelines and the rules. And it was amazing. We were able to deep dive, right? And so I was, for the first time, able to take everything we've created with the podcast and deep dive with individuals who have followed the show, who I've connected with over the years from speaking at things like PodFest and other events, which was amazing. And that's something that I've added to the repertoire. So there's another one coming in October. And so I think the neat part about podcasting is that it's a medium to connect, right? If you do it the right way, you're connecting with, whether it's the people you're talking to on the screen here, like you and I, or the people that are listening. How can you connect, create community, and then deliver something to that community in order to serve them in some way, shape, or form? And so that's really been the evolution of the Growth Now movement and everything that's involved with that. And I do plan on bringing back the live event once everybody feels safe and they're willing to fill an arena one day.
Sure. You know, live events can be incredibly powerful. And, you know, I think I want to tag on what you said earlier. You know, we don't have control over COVID. We don't have control over some things in our environments. However, what we do have control over is how we perceive what we can do with what we have. And I think it's really important for us to understand that we have a lot of opportunities. And if you're looking at the obstacles, you always find more obstacles. So look at the opportunities, discover what you can do with the things that you have right around you. Like you said, your girlfriend and your friend, you know, you created a retreat. You still staying safe, following the guidelines and everything else and best practices. And it's still possible to do things like that. And it's really important for us to understand that we're not always limited to what we feel our limitations are. So I just want to recognize that. I want to give a shout out to Howard Kaufman. Howard's an incredible individual that I really thoroughly enjoy being around. Great story. There is so many kernels of learning from the podcast conversations. Even those in different industries may trigger new thoughts and perspectives. It continues to be an inspirational input to helping me with challenges and opportunities. We all have challenges and opportunities, and it's so important for us to understand that we don't have to have all the answers. We have other people that might have an experience that is unique to our needs and the things we're challenged by, and ask for help. Reach out and say, hey, if I have a podcasting issue or a challenge, I could say, Justin, what have you done in this situation? You got any ideas and thoughts for me? And reach out and ask questions. We're on social media. You can ask questions so many ways, so many different directions. And it's really important for us to understand that we don't have to have all the answers, and we don't have to feel alone because we don't have the answers. Because I think it's important for the community, because kindness is cool and smiles are free. That's why.
It's true. It's true. And I love the idea of life is happening for us and not to us, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, you focus on the problems, you're going to have more problems. And that's just the reality. But if you focus on what you can be grateful for, and the opportunities the world is creating for you to create the next big thing, or whatever you feel is important, right? And one thing I always like to make super clear is, like, my show has gone on and it's grown, and it's doing really, really well. I mean, a couple million downloads over the course of the show itself, and tens of thousands of downloads per episode now, and I feel really blessed. But back when the show was doing 60 downloads an episode, and I did have that pod fade moment of, do I quit? What should I do? This is, nobody is paying attention. I actually had somebody reach out to me from Japan, and they said, Justin, because of your podcast, I decided not to take my life. And wow. I realized that impact happens even if it's one person at a time. And so as we talk about things like life is happening for me, not to me, what are the things that you're going through right now that become part of your story, that become part of the thing that you want to build, right? We're sitting here talking about podcasting. This is just one of the many ways to grow a platform, right? Like, you're very big into video. I don't use much video. And I jokingly say I have a face for podcasts, which is why I'm real heavy on the audio side, right? But with that being said, like, what's your vehicle in order to create your movement? And of course, my show is about overcoming adversity and is in the self-development space. But if your show is about podcasting, or if your show is about business, you could teach that one tip that changes the person's life in such a direction that now they have a strong roof over their head, supporting their family. There's food on the table. There's whatever that you've created for them. And so understand that everything is happening for you. You just have to take the time to learn the lesson so you can then go teach other people.
Well, and I think that's a great point, Justin. Learn the lesson, because there are so many things that we fail to add. And I'm so bad at this. I'm improving. I'm working and I'm improving on this. I diminish some of the things that I've learned and the experience that I have, and I share with other people. And I think everybody knows this. And it's like, no, not everybody knows this. And I want to go back to the message from Japan, because it's so life-changing for some people that you will never hear a word from. And that moment when you get a text message or an email or something saying, hey, I really enjoy what you're doing. Thank you so much. And that moment of appreciation has a huge impact on people. Even if you're not podcasting, even if you're not creating, you make a difference. You make it matter. And we're all here for a reason. We're all here for a mission. And the reality is we all have a gift. We all have a message. We just have to learn how to share it. And whether it's podcasting or not, it could be blogging, it could be anything. I just want to make sure that we all understand that there's something out there for us, and you have an opportunity to share it. So I want to give a shout out to Angie. Angie, good morning. She's an amazing supporter, and love you. And good morning, Pirates. Jenny Gold is here. Hey, Russ Johns. She says, what a great interview. Hi, Justin and Howard Kaufman. And Nick says, Nick from the north, my brother Nick. How are you doing, my friend? Love to catch up soon. The reality, Justin, is that we are living in the most incredible time for live events, podcasting, live streaming, content creation, and the numbers tell. You feel like you're in a saturated market only because you're seeing the same thing you're producing, and it's really not. You go out and do you go out and be yourself, and things will show up, conversations will take place, and you will evolve. So keep doing it.
No, I love that you said that, because, a couple of things that you touched on that you nailed and you hit it out of the park, right? We all have a story. The thing is, what a lot of people do is they believe that they are their story versus because of their story, right? So they become that victim. They kind of fall into that grief moment and all those thought processes. But if we can change that narrative and say, I am because of my story, this is what has built my strength, that then becomes your message, right? Like that then becomes the next thing. And then whatever your medium is, whether that is just one-on-one, going out to dinner with a friend and changing their life, or if it's podcasting, or if it's streaming, or if it's blog writing, there's so many opportunities this day and age in order to get your story and your message out there to help improve some lives. That is game changing. Same for your business. Like if you're not trying new things to grow your business or your platform, like you're missing out, because the opportunity is great. The fact that I'm in Reading, Pennsylvania, you're in Arizona, and we're sitting here live as people all over the world are tuning in on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, which is unreal. I love that, by the way. I also love it. People say hello, Pirates. But, realistically, the crazy thing is, like, this is game changing stuff, and it's only going to get better. So might as well hop. I mean, you got in real early. Like, I feel like an OG, but like you're an OG, right? Like you've been around a long time. But it's about really hopping in and saying, yes, I'm going to give this a try.
Yeah. And people, I think people right now, because of, things like TikTok and Instagram Live and, all of the things that are taking place, it feels as if there's a lot going on. However, coming from, like you said, the beginning, the story of origin, we have traveled so far in so little space. And I'm a little older than most people on social media, but it's the reality is that I love the fact that the technology and the systems allow us to connect in new and unique ways. And I think it's important also, like you're going back to, the physical connection, the live events. We're all kind of storing up the energy that's going to be available to us when all this things clears out and, life goes back to whatever it's going to end up being in the future. And it's really important for us to stay connected with people to the best of our ability, and have the opportunity to maintain that relationship and build those relationships over time, because it's so important for us to stay connected with people, and it's just, and like you said, you're evolving into a few new things and a few new adventures, and maybe you can speak to that and where you're taking this direction and momentum as well, because we're all changing, we're all evolving. So what's the next chapter for Justin in the book of life?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it a little bit, right? These retreats are something new. Like I look at, obviously we went full in on a 2.5 day retreat. It'll be 3 next time, but learning from that and making it better, right? Continuously improving the things that we're able to do right now to serve individuals on a deeper level. My goal is to reach millions of lives and let people know that it doesn't matter where you come from. What matters are the choices you make today to create a better tomorrow for yourself and the world. And that's really my purpose and my drive for everything that I do, whether it's my podcast or helping other people podcast. And, my thing was I've done a lot of one-on-one coaching with 7-figure entrepreneurs and influencers to help them launch their podcasts and stuff like that and do it the right way. And I kind of said to myself going into 2021, I want to be more of face forward, right? I want Justin Schenck to be able to tell his story on a deeper level, reaching more people. So I took a step back in the podcast world, and I created an online course for individuals where I literally teach what I was teaching 7-figure plus entrepreneurs for thousands of dollars. I really scaled it down into this incredible deep course for people to really launch or relaunch their show in the right way. And so I'm really excited about that, because the goal, again, is to reach millions of lives. How do we do that? We do that by giving the tools to others so they can reach those lives. And so if they launch a podcast and 10 years down the road, they're like, I changed all these lives. And I went, cool, I was a little piece of that. That's enough for me. And that's really kind of where I'm going, is how can I make micro connections in my life that make macro effects into the world? And that's a big focus of mine. Again, planning Growth Now Movement Live whenever that wants to come back around. We're potentially, I mean, this is a very small maybe, but September of this year, potentially we could do it. But if not, we'll push to 2022 and we'll have a massive event with incredible speakers and people from all over having a big party. And so I like to call my events a 2-day rock concert for entrepreneurs. Like literally in 2019, I had dancers dancing the speakers up to the stage. We had live performances and dances up on the stage. Like it was absolutely incredible. What I was planning for 2020, I mean, I had live performers coming in from LA, like musicians, and it was going to be amazing. So let's try and recreate that whenever we're allowed. So for me, to the long-winded question, right, or the long-winded answer that I could have said in a sentence is, I want to continue to impact more lives. I'm going to do whatever I can in order to do that, whether that's retreats, live events, online courses, which is the first. It's funny. They've been around forever. All my friends do them. This is my first really foray into them. Yeah. But excited for that as well, and going to continue to try and make an impact wherever I can.
You know, making an impact is what it's all about. And I think it's really important for us to understand that everybody can make an impact on somebody. Everybody does make an impact on somebody. And I would like to encourage you to make it a positive one, because if you turn on the TV, you know that it's not all positive. So let's move forward and do what we can to make it as positive as possible. And I love what you're doing with the Growth Now movement. And I hope that evolves and encourages people to get involved and join in, because I have damaged almost every part of my body. And when I start feeling my bones and my aches and pains, I think that's a story. I can tell a story around that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to appreciate what you have and, you know, develop and grow from what you have. And you've really taken this on, and you've grown, and you've expanded your brand, and you've expanded the message, and you've helped so many people explore this through podcasting. And I look forward to seeing what is going to happen in the new future with live events and activities around that. So I want to dive in before and share with the pirates, because I know there are a lot of pirates out there that are doing their own podcast, and I want to dive into a little bit of strategy on some of the things that you did growing up to these live events and making an impact to millions of people. And what things do we need to think about as we're growing, and what kind of efforts do we need to put into our messaging to make sure that we can actually see a result, or not get discouraged by the slow growth? Some things that we might be able to consider or might be able to do. I know I've shared a lot on the show, and I've had other people share on their messaging as well. So what are some things that you've come across that people might want to consider as they're developing their podcast or their show?
Yeah, podcasting is an interesting medium, like we talked about. There's no hacks. Like you can buy Instagram followers. You can't buy downloads for your podcast that are actual followers. I'm sure there's a way that it's happening somewhere. People are buying downloads, but it doesn't matter if you're trying to actually make an impact, right? And so one thing I will say is this: for years I did the podcast, and a couple hundred downloads here and there, and it was fine. And my guests were saying, "Wow, your audience is really engaged. They're reaching out to me." And I went, why aren't they reaching out to me? Like, I didn't even know who was listening. I knew people were out there listening somewhere, but they weren't reaching out to me. And so what I ended up adding to my show, and I'd stopped doing it since, but I was doing a weekly moment of growth. So it was me, 5-10 minutes, sharing something inspirational, sharing a teaching tip, doing something like that every Friday on the podcast. And then all of a sudden they reached out to me. They're like, wow, this guy's not just a good question asker. He kind of knows what he's talking about. So the first tip I'm going to say is make yourself the expert as well. I know a lot of these podcasts are interviewing people, but you have something to say too. Share that with your audience. Then you're going to see who they are. Now, here's the really important part that most podcasters miss. I stood up at the front of PodFest a couple of years ago. I hosted their biggest breakout that year, which I was really honored that even happened. Mm-hmm. And what I said was, in front of hundreds of podcasters, I said, podcasters are the most selfish people on the planet. I thought I was going to get thrown off the stage. But here's what I meant by that. We buy a microphone and we feel like what we have to say is so important. Yeah. Well, if the people are listening don't find what you have to say to be important, they're not going to keep listening. And so don't be afraid to ask those people that end up reaching out to you and say, hey, I really liked that episode. Go, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. What do you want more of? What do you want me to continue to give you on this show? Right. And here's what happens. Here's the secret. You then give them that to the deepest level you possibly can. And then they're going to tell their friends. There's a good chance their friends are very much like them, and they're going to also want to listen to to your show. So the number one way still to grow your podcast, yes, there's ads you can run now and do all these things, but the number one way still to grow your show on podcasting is word of mouth and to truly build that relationship. So number one step is ask your audience what they want more of. Number two step is get out of your own dang way and give them that. And then the third step would be to continue to pour into them and continue to have that grow organically for you. And that's really the first step is like, are you delivering the right content to the audience you're trying to reach? And once you get that point down, there's other things obviously you can add and so on and so forth. And there's tips and tricks and tactics and launch things. But from that standpoint, continue to pour into the people that you know are listening. And then you're going to see that organic growth 100% of the time.
Well, I think it's important for people to understand, and we talked about pod fade from earlier in the episode. The reality is that you just have to decide that it's a long game, and you're gonna have one conversation at a time, and you're gonna talk to one person at a time, and those individuals are going to eventually talk to someone else, and you're slowly. There's no shortage of people out there to listen. It's just a matter of finding the right people and making those connections, because not everybody's going to resonate with my message. Not everybody's going to resonate with your message, and that's okay. Yeah. We're all human, we're all going to find a friend, it's like, hey, pick a human, make them a friend. And the reality is that's how podcasting is just be yourself and make sure that you're putting out the best possible content that people are asking for. So they come back, they return, and they stay involved and engaged in your message. So it's so important. So Sherry Lawley, you're here. Good morning, all pirates. Love you, Sherry. Take care. So it's really, I hear this message over and over. So, and I thank you for doing that. Hopefully, like I said, what I do with the pirate broadcast is demonstrate to individuals what the Pirate Syndicate delivers, and the Pirate Syndicate is the tool and the vehicle that I use to produce shows for other people and other individuals. And it's really important for people to understand that you have an option. If the technology and the process and all of the things that have to go into it overwhelm you, build a team, grow a team, bring people in around you that can actually provide that service and the support, and find some inspiration from people like Justin. It's like you're doing this all the time, and there are resources out there. So don't feel like you're obligated to do it alone. Feel like you're obligated to help other people, add value, and you'll always have a place in the world. So.
No, I love that. Actually, the last tip I shared in the training, we just finished the week 3 module last night. Mm-hmm. And the last tip was stop doing things you don't like doing. So if you don't like the editing, if you don't like the social media posts, if you don't like that stuff, give it to somebody else to do. Find a way. And by the way, there's a whole scale. Like we talked, you own a production company. I own a production company. Our price points are probably one's in left field and one's in right field. You can find a price point that matches you. Just make sure they're delivering on the quality that you're asking for, right? And from that standpoint, get rid of it. Like, that's why pod fade happens, because you're doing all these things you don't actually like doing. Just have somebody else do it. Like, that is so smart. Also, we haven't discussed, you talk about the name, where the pirate broadcast came from. Mm-hmm. We both have unhuman parts inside of our body. I got screws in my hips. So I love that too, man.
We both have the hips going, don't we?
Yeah, it's unreal.
Well, and that's the whole message that we share all the time, Justin, is the triumph over tragedy. Take the circumstances we are involved in and, merge them with life and make them a story and make them play out in a positive way. This message, we don't have to fall down and stay down. We could get up and do something else. There are no limits right now. There are only opportunities out there. And it's really important for us to understand that that's the way it is. So that's another episode. We should probably schedule another episode. So it's really exciting to talk about some of these things that we didn't touch on. But I did want to make sure that you were highlighted in the fact that you've been doing podcasting, you've done live shows, you got more live events coming up, and people need to connect. So how do people connect? How do you like to have people connect with you?
Yeah, my favorite platform is Instagram. So if they follow me over there, it's at Justin T. Schenck. They can shoot me a message. I try and get back. I do get back to everybody who messages me. I actually try and message everybody who follows me. That's a fun little game as well. So they can follow me at Justin T. Schenck over there. Would love to connect. And if podcasting is a thing and they want to get into a course, obviously the course is out there now, purposedrivenpodcaster.com. They can see how to really effectively launch and grow their show. But honored to be here. And I love your community. I love the comments coming in. And so this has been phenomenal. Thank you.
Well, Justin, I really appreciate you and all the opportunities to connect. And let's, now that you're a pirate, you're always welcome back. So let's keep the conversation going and grow the community and make sure that you're making a difference and go out and make it matter, everyone, because kindness is cool. Smiles are free. So you enjoy the day. Take care, everyone. Thank you for joining the Pirate Broadcast. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and share it across your social media channels. I would love the opportunity to help others grow in their business. The Pirate Syndicate is a platform where you show up, we produce the show. It's that easy. If you want to be seen, be heard, and be talked about, join the Pirate Syndicate today.